There is a quart jar sitting on my potting bench right now, and the liquid inside it looks like watered down milk. It cost me about $1 to fill, and most of that dollar was the water. Yesterday afternoon, the pole beans in my back row were crawling with black aphids, hundreds of them packed onto the new growth like pepper spilled across a plate. This morning, every aphid I can find on those beans is dead, and the leaves look untouched. I did not drive to the garden centre. I did not spend $18 on a spray bottle with a skull symbol on the back label. I poured this jar into a cheap hand sprayer and spent 10 minutes walking the bean row before supper. Now here's the part that stops people. You cannot buy this exact mix on a garden shelf. Nobody can legally bottle it and sell it to you as a bug killer. Not in 35 states, not in any of the 50. And the reason is not a secret, and it is not a scandal. It is plain law and even plainer arithmetic, and I'm going to walk you through the whole thing today. But stay with me all the way to the end, because whether this jar wipes out your aphids or does absolutely nothing comes down to what happens on the leaf in the first 2 minutes after you spray. Get that part wrong, and you will swear this whole method is a myth. Get it right, and you may never buy another bottle of bug spray again. I'm Steve Calloway. I've been growing food in the same Midwest backyard for more than 20 years, running side-by-side test beds and writing down what actually happened in every single one of them. My first garden was an overfed jungle of green that gave me about a dozen sad tomatoes all summer. My wife Karen keeps the harvest log with me now, and these days our biggest problem is giving food away fast enough. If you grow vegetables, you already know the war I am talking about. Aphids clustered on the beans and the pepper tips. Spider mites turning tomato leaves into speckled yellow paper in the August heat. Whiteflies rising off the squash leaves in a little cloud every time your sleeve brushes the plant. And the standard answer is a wall of spray bottles at the garden centre running $12 to $20 a piece. Most of them labelled for some pests and not others, so one bad summer can cost you $50 or $60 in bottles before Labor Day. I ran that math on my own garden years ago, and I did not like the answer, so I did what I always do. I set up a test. 2 raised beds of bush beans, same seed packet, same soil, planted the same morning. When the aphids showed up in both beds, and they always do, I treated one bed with a name brand spray from the store and the other bed with the dollar jar. Karen wrote the aphid counts in the log every other day. 10 days later, I could not tell those 2 beds apart. Dead aphids in both. Clean new growth in both. The only difference was the receipt. So what is in the jar? 2 things: water and a small exact amount of plain liquid dish soap. That is the entire recipe. And I know how that sounds because half the gardeners in this country have heard soap spray is an old wives' tale, and plenty have tried it once and watched it fail. Both camps are right, and the reason they are both right is that 2-minute window on the leaf I mentioned. We are getting there, I promise. First, you need the exact mix, because the ratio is where most jars go wrong before they ever leave the potting bench. Now, before we mix anything, I want you to know that what I'm showing you today is one piece of a bigger system. I wrote the whole thing down, day by day, in a book called Steve's 30-Day Maximum Yield Protocol. It is the exact 30-day system I follow in my own backyard to roughly double what every plant produces, written out for home gardeners who want significantly more food from the space they already have. No extra square footage, no expensive equipment. It works in raised beds, in-ground rows and containers, and it covers the big 7 yield killers. The diagnostic framework I use to find what is quietly holding a garden back, pests included. It is 115 pages, and right now it is $17, marked down from $47. One good bottle of store spray costs more than half that, and the book pays for itself in the first row of beans. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, let's mix this jar together right here at the potting bench. Start with 1 quart of lukewarm water in a clean hand sprayer or a mason jar. Lukewarm, because soap blends into warm water evenly and clumps in cold. Then add 2 teaspoons of plain liquid dish soap. 2 teaspoons, not 2 tablespoons. I want to repeat that because this is the number one place homemade soap spray goes wrong. 2 teaspoons per quart. And the difference between a teaspoon and a tablespoon is the difference between dead aphids and burned bean leaves. More soap does not mean more dead bugs. More soap means scorched brown edges on every leaf you touch, and then the whole method gets blamed for it. Now, the soap itself matters. You want the plainest, most boring liquid dish soap on the shelf. No antibacterial formulas, no heavy-duty degreasers, nothing with bleach in it, and nothing from the laundry aisle, because detergents carry additives that plant leaves cannot handle. If you want the gold standard, pure Castile soap, the old-fashioned vegetable oil soap is the gentlest thing you can put on a plant, and a small bottle of it will mix spray for 2 full summers. If you are filling a 1-gallon pump sprayer instead of a quart jar, the math is about 2.5 tablespoons of soap per gallon. Then put the lid on and swirl it gently. Do not shake it like a paint can, because a sprayer full of suds sputters and spits instead of misting. A gentle swirl, the water turns that thin, milky white you saw in my jar. And you are done. Total cost, somewhere around $1. And honestly, I am rounding up. So how does dish soap kill an insect? This is the part I find genuinely interesting. And understanding it is what separates the folks who use this well from the folks who wave it around and hope. A soft-bodied insect like an aphid does not breathe through its mouth. It breathes through tiny openings along its body, and its whole body is wrapped in a thin, waxy coating that holds its moisture in. That wax coating is the insect's raincoat and its canteen at the same time. Soap is designed to dissolve grease and wax. That is its entire job at your kitchen sink. So when a droplet of soapy water lands on an aphid, it strips that waxy coating and clogs those breathing openings, and the insect dehydrates and suffocates within a few minutes. That is why the title on this video says instantly, and on contact, that is fair. You can watch a cluster of aphids go still while you finish spraying the row. But notice what that mechanism requires. The soap has to physically touch the insect while the soap is still doing its work. Hold on to that sentence. It is the whole ball game. And it is exactly where we are headed before this video is over. Now let me give you the honest scoreboard, because the title of this video says all garden pests, and I'm not going to look you in the eye and tell you that. The garden doesn't lie, and I won't either. Here is what this spray kills, tested in my own beds. Aphids, every colour, every crop, and aphids alone justify the jar. Spider mites, the little specks that web up your tomatoes and cucumbers in hot, dry weather. Whiteflies, when you catch them sitting on the leaf. Mealybugs, the little white cotton tufts on stems. Thrips, partially. And squash bug nymphs, the grey babies when they are young and soft. That list covers most of what actually robs a vegetable garden through the summer. Here is what it will not do. A grown Japanese beetle wears a hard shell like a little armoured car, and soapy mist rolls right off it. Same for grown squash bugs and cucumber beetles. Big caterpillars, like the tomato hornworm as thick as your finger, mostly shrug it off too. For those, the answer is older and simpler. I carry a bucket with a few inches of soapy water down the row at 7 in the morning when Japanese beetles are cold and slow, and I knock them off the leaves straight into the bucket. Submerged in soapy water, they are done in seconds. Same soap, different delivery. Between the sprayer and the bucket, that $1 of soap handles nearly everything I face in a season. And that is honestly a better deal than the wall of bottles offers, because most of those store sprays are just as selective. They simply put it in smaller print. Now, application. Because a contact killer is only as good as your coverage. This spray has no reach and no residue. It kills what it touches and nothing else. So you are not misting the general direction of the plant like air freshener. You are coating the insects themselves. And here is the detail that matters most. Aphids, spider mites, and whiteflies do not sit on top of the leaf posing for you. They live on the undersides out of the sun and the rain. So you get down low, you lift the leaves, and you spray up into the plant until the undersides are wet and dripping. If your knees complain like mine do, a sprayer wand with a curved tip does the bending for you. 10 minutes for a full bean row, and I mean a thorough 10 minutes. Before you treat a whole crop, do the one leaf test, spray a single leaf, walk away, and check it after 24 hours. 24 hours, a full day. If that leaf looks fine, the whole plant is safe at your mix. A few crops run tender, young seedlings especially, and peas can be touchy, so the test leaf is cheap insurance. And in a hot week, you can rinse tender plants with plain water a few hours after spraying. By then, the soap has already done everything it is ever going to do. And that little fact is a clue about the big payoff still coming. One more scheduling note. Soap does not touch insect eggs, so one perfect spraying kills the adults and leaves next week's hatch untouched. The fix is simple. Spray again every 4 to 5 days for about 2 weeks. 4 to 5 days, 2 weeks, and you break the life cycle instead of trimming it. Karen's log says 3 passes usually ends an aphid outbreak for the season on any given crop. So now you know what is in the jar, why it works, what it kills, and how to put it on. Which brings us back to the question this whole video hangs on. If a $1 mix does all this, why can't you walk into a garden centre and buy a bottle of it? The answer is federal law, and it is duller and more interesting than any rumour. In this country, anything sold with a claim that it kills pests is legally a pesticide, and every pesticide sold on a shelf has to be registered with the federal government first. Registration means safety studies, efficacy data, labelling review, and fees, and the whole process runs into serious money, often years of it. A company will happily spend that on a formula it can patent and own. Nobody on earth can patent dish soap and water. So no company will ever spend registration money on a product any customer can mix at the sink for $1 because they could never earn it back. That is the entire story. It was never pulled off shelves in some dramatic sweep. It simply cannot be put on a shelf and sold as a bug killer in any state without a registration nobody will ever pay for. No villain required, just arithmetic. And in fairness, the garden centre does sell this jar's registered cousin. It is called insecticidal soap, made from refined potassium salts of fatty acids, and it runs $8 to $12 a bottle. It is a fine product, a bit gentler on sensitive plants, and if mixing your own makes you nervous, buy it with my blessing. But it kills aphids by the exact same mechanism as my quart jar, at roughly 10 times the price. I tested them head-to-head across 2 summers. Same soil, same crops, side by side. Karen's log couldn't tell them apart. Which brings us finally to the promise I made you at the start. The 2 minutes on the leaf, the reason one neighbour swears by soap spray and the other neighbour swears it is a myth when they are using the identical recipe. Here it is. Soap only kills while it is wet. The moment a soap droplet dries, the chemistry stops completely. Dried soap film on a leaf is inert. It does not poison the next aphid that walks across it. There is no residual effect at all. None. Which is exactly why it is so safe around your tomatoes and your grandkids, and exactly why timing decides everything. The soap needs to sit wet on that insect's body for a couple of minutes to strip the wax and shut down the breathing openings. 2 minutes wet, dead aphid, 30 seconds wet, that aphid gets an unpleasant bath and goes right back to draining your beans. Now think about what the sun does. Spray at 1 in the afternoon. In July, 90 degrees, full sun on the leaves, and your fine mist of droplets flashes dry in under a minute. The soap never gets its 2 minutes. Every insect survives, and as a bonus, soap and water droplets sitting on a leaf in blazing sun act like little magnifying lenses and scorch the foliage. So the noon sprayer gets living aphids and burned leaves and walks away telling everyone soap spray is a fairy tale. He is not lying. He just never gave the soap time to work. Now spray that same jar in the evening after the sun is off the garden or early in the morning before it climbs. The air is cool, the leaves are shaded, and those droplets stay wet for 10, 15, 20 minutes. The soap gets 10 times the working window it needs. The insects are sluggish in the cool and sitting still for you. Every droplet finishes its job. Same jar, same recipe, same garden, completely different result. That was my beans yesterday. I sprayed at 7:30 in the evening with the sun behind the garage, and by this morning the row was clean. So write this on the jar if you have to. Evening or early morning, never midday sun, and skip it entirely when the day tops about 85 degrees. That one rule is the entire difference between the myth and the method, and that is exactly the kind of thing the whole protocol is built on. Tested in real beds, cheap enough that the garden pays for itself, and written out so you can just follow along. Steve's 30-day maximum yield protocol is the full 30-day system, day by day from soil preparation through harvest, including the Big 7 yield killers framework, feeding for fruit instead of foliage, and the pruning and planting systems that roughly doubled what my backyard puts out. $17, down from $47, and a single saved crop of beans covers it. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So, one more time, short and sweet. 2 teaspoons of plain soap in a quart of water, coat the undersides, repeat every 4 to 5 days, and spray in the evening or early morning so the soap stays wet long enough to do its work. If you run this test in your own beds this week, come back and tell me the before and after in the comments. I read every single one. And next time, I am going to show you the one pruning cut on a tomato plant that feels dead wrong the first time you make it, and why my test rows say that single cut is worth about 15 extra pounds of fruit per plant by September. Get out there and get your hands dirty, and I'll see you in the garden.